This is already the worst anybody has ever done, and you haven't left yet.
I know. I've had some help, though, Bob. I had some help. Some sweet little old lady helped me. She helped me out.
That's Paul Jakes. If you don't yet know Paul, you will shortly. And you'll find out why he is sitting on a snowmobile drenched in egg yolk. Egg yolk that is now flowing out the bottom of his snowmobile jacket, while several volunteers continue to stuff another 100 raw eggs down the top of his jacket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. 30 years ago, when I was a much younger morning disc jockey in a much younger country radio station, I came up with an idea to raise money for the Pine Tree Camp for children and adults with disabilities. It became the Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride. Listeners pledged their support to the camp through the radio station, and for every $50 pledged, celebrity riders would have to put a raw egg into their snowsuits for a snowmobile ride from Levant to Newport. When we first started out, we did the ride with dozens of eggs. Before long, it was hundreds. This year, 600 eggs for each rider. Never mind how messy that gets. That's 75 pounds of eggs just in the weight alone. Or it would be if the top ones didn't crush the bottom ones and send all that ooze into your shorts. This is nuts. But this was the 30th year, so something must be going right. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS. "45 years ago, area snowmobile clubs started banding together to raise money for the Pine Tree Camp, a camp on the shores of North Pond in Rome, Maine, one of the Belgrade Lakes. For 75 years, that camp has been a place where special children can have a normal experience, with no barriers to swimming and boating and fishing and all the other things that summer campers get to do. No child is ever turned away because of financial need. It takes a lot to support a camp like that, but Mainers take care of their own. And this camp has been loved by generations of Mainers. You're listening right now to 92.9 The Ticket. 30 years ago, I was across the hall on Q106.5, a country station that now shares this building with 5 Town Square Media radio stations. So when this year rolled around, and the staff of Q106.5 wanted me to join the celebration to celebrate the 30th year, all they had to do was walk across the hall and ask. The 30th Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride took place last Saturday, and if I told you everything went smoothly, I'd be lying. First, the weather. To pull off a snowmobile event, there is one ingredient that you really can't do without: snow. I don't have to tell you what January was like, and February started off the same way. Finally, one day before the egg ride, over a half a foot of snow fell. But too late. The trails between Levant and Newport cross a lot of frozen streams and marshes, only some of them weren't frozen. We've been in this predicament before, so plan B is to put the sleds on flatbeds and drive them down the back roads to Newport. It's not as great, but it'll do, and as it turns out, that's got its own challenges. Remember all that snow that fell the day before the ride? That's all now road slush. And guess what happens when a passing car splashes that slush onto the flatbeds, which have snowmobiles, upon which sit all of these riders? This just isn't going to be pretty. As the show starts, it is 7:30 a.m., and I'm at the Hungry Hollow 76ers Snowmobile Club on the Horseback Road in Levant. The sun is up, but just barely, just over the horizon. It's cold, but not as bad as some years, and it'll get better later. The parking lot is already a beehive of activity. There's limited parking, and the snowmobile trailers need some maneuvering room. I already know what's inside the clubhouse, one of the best breakfasts of any snowmobile club anywhere in Maine. How are you? Good morning. Hi. Yeah. I wonder what it is outside now, do you know?
It was 9.
I know. It was 6 when I left the house. Yeah. It was about 11, 12 when I came in the driveway. I beat the rest of the radio crew here, but most of the game wardens are present already. The Maine game wardens also have come to adopt the Pine Tree Camp over the last couple of decades. At first, they provided safe road crossing for the caravan of sleds as we did the ride from here down to Newport. But once Northwood's Law made them celebrities, they've actually joined the riders and get themselves all egged up. At least 4 of them will make the ride today, while the rest will keep everybody safe on the road. I got here early so I could grab some breakfast before it gets hectic, because this really is an outstanding breakfast.
Well, what's for breakfast?
Everything. Home fries.
Oh, definitely home fries.
If you want any more, just come back.
Eggs,
Eggs, please.
sausage,
Absolutely sausage.
1 or 2.
I better do 1. Thank you.
You're welcome.
In just over an hour, the egg loading will begin. At this point, you may be thinking it's really not that bad. But it is. And ever since the egg ride started, parents have been bringing their small kids to watch and laugh. Usually the kids get to help load the eggs into the jackets. That's why 6-year-old Kaylin and 5-year-old Amelia are here. And they can't wait to start stuffing eggs down a game warden. But first,
we're having breakfast.
Breakfast.
Yes.
What was your favorite part of breakfast?
Having the pancake. Having sausage.
Now, what are you here to see today?
Snowmobiles. And we're gonna do snow angels.
Did you watch the eggs last year?
Yes.
So what did it look like?
It looked like they were cracking when they go back.
Did you help actually load on any eggs to people? No.
I
Just
just
for this year.
watched them.
Why don't you go ahead and describe what would you do if you get to load in eggs to people?
I would put them in their hats. I would put them in their shirts and it would squish when they sit down.
Would you put them down gently or would you throw them down their shirts?
Wow.
You would throw them. What would you do? Would you throw them down a shirt? But you've never done that before. So today will be your first day putting eggs down people's shirts? Mm-hmm. By the end of this, you'll be an expert.
Yeah.
How many eggs would you like to put down somebody's shirt?
1,000.
How many?
1,000.
How many eggs would you like to put down somebody's shirt?
5.
Just 5? Only 5 eggs? They're going to have hundreds of eggs. You can do more than that.
by this point, the rest of the crew is starting to arrive. Scott Miller, the new morning guy on Q106.5, is driving the station van. Sort of. There's a little incline on the way up to the clubhouse parking lot, and it's a bit slippery if you don't get a running start. He didn't. At the top of the hill, we all watch and giggle as he slowly backs down the hill, off the road, and into a ditch. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck. You can see it coming, and you just can't look away. So while one of the trucks pulls him out, we'll go to Cindy Campbell. She's been with the station for 29 years and has done this egg ride more than any other person in history. So, since you have a pretty good idea what's coming, what's going through your mind?
What's going through my mind?
Yeah.
How cold it's going to be on the backs of those flatbeds, because when the air comes up over the truck and hits you, it's very cold. And we already got the Q van in the snowbank once, and now I'm going to be on a trailer on a snowmobile behind a truck. So I'm a little concerned about that.
Well, you say we, but really it was Scott Miller who got this.
It was Scott Miller who got, I had nothing to do with it.
Yeah, it was all Scott, nobody else.
Right.
But you have done this before, so you know what it feels like when those eggs start to ooze.
Right.
And you also know when that starts to happen. Describe it.
Well, when you start feeling it go into your underwear, that it's reached the skin. It's a big mess. You're not really conscious of the fact that it's rolling down your legs until you stand up a little bit and sit back down and slide on the egg guts, and then you know that you've got egg guts sliding down your legs. It's messy, and it's not as cold as people think it would be until we actually start de-egging, and then it gets cold.
Well, that's just it, because it's right next to your body.
Right. It actually kind of keeps you warm.
Yeah. It's kind of a yolky insulation mixture.
Right. And they're great weapons for throwing.
But on the other hand, once it gets down into your boots, that's not so good.
Not so good. No, when your feet get wet, if your hands get wet, if you get it on your skin, the eggs freeze immediately and it gets very cold.
Okay, how many times have you made this mistake? You're on the trail, you're riding, you wipe a little snow off your visor,
yes,
not realizing how messy your gloves are.
Right, yeah, and suddenly you can't see. It happens all the time. Last year I actually got nailed by one of the warden's daughters with an egg on the edge of my visor, and tried to swipe it away and had egg guts all over my visor. Yeah, it happens a lot.
Once you do that, you cannot use the face mask. It's going to pop up.
Right, exactly, and that gets really cold really fast.
Yeah, you see your eyes water as you try. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Been there, done that.
And wearing glasses, I quite often have to crack the visor anyway, or my glasses fog up. And so you crack that visor and the air is coming in, it can get cold.
Yeah, I mean, picture this. You're riding on a sled, let's say 25, 30 miles an hour or worse,
Right.
loaded with hundreds and hundreds of eggs.
Right.
You can barely steer, and now you can't see.
Right, exactly. But all you have to do is follow the people in front of you, so it's all good.
I hope they don't stop
For the most part.
That's Cindy Campbell, the most experienced Pine Tree Camp egg rider in history. Her listeners pledged over $30,000 to the Pine Tree Camp for children and adults with disabilities, knowing that for every $50 in total pledges, she and other station personalities, a bunch of Northwoods Law game wardens, and some camp leaders would have to put raw eggs in their snowsuits for this infamous snowmobile egg ride. It's been going on for 30 years now. If you've done the math, that's 600 raw eggs apiece, or at least until they run out of eggs. There are many large cartons of eggs sitting out there by the trailers, and in a few minutes, they'll get loaded down the riders' shirts and jackets. Up next, why are we doing this? It's Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. I'm at the 30th annual Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride last weekend, an event where radio listeners pledge money to support the camp, and for every $50 raised, a bunch of celebrity riders get another raw egg in their snowsuits. The ride starts at the Hungry Hollow 76ers Snowmobile Club in Levant, where I am right now, and snowmobiles down to Newport. This is the 30th year, and for a lot of those years, Harvey Chesley has handled the coordination between the radio and the camp. How many is this for you, Harvey?
This will be my 23rd.
I know.
And it never gets old. It's more fun every year.
Mm-hmm. 23. What was the funniest episode you can remember in all that time? Anything come to mind?
I think Cindy hitting the fire hydrant, because I didn't actually get to see it, but everybody showed up at the community center and they were all concerned about the snowmobile, and nobody seemed to be concerned about Cindy. So that was that was a good one.
Isn't that the way? How many eggs do we put in today, do you think?
Today, I believe you're going to put in over 600 eggs per rider.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not sure where they're going to go, but that we'll find out, I guess.
Well, the truth is the bottom ones make room for the top ones.
That's what I hear. I've never had the pleasure of doing that, but
trust me.
Yeah. Well, what's it feel like?
It feels really weird, because initially you say no more eggs could go in. And then you keep putting eggs in. It's like the miracle of the loaves and fishes in reverse.
Yes. Well, one of our celebrity riders, Paul Jakes, who's the president of our board, one year he rode with long underwear on or something, and when he got there, he said he felt like he was sitting on French toast. So,
yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
You definitely start to feel real oozy.
Yes, yeah, I could see how that would happen.
Now, what is your role with the Pine Tree Camp?
I am the facilities director. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
We've been undertaking a pretty major master plan over the last 7 or 8 years, really improving our buildings, making the buildings more from summer camps to year-round buildings with air conditioning and heat, wireless Wi-Fi, bringing all our modern conveniences and still making it feel like a camp.
I think that's what really amazes me is a Pine Tree Camp has been around since World War II or before.
It has.
And usually when you get a camp to that age, it sort of at some point stops growing.
Right.
Or the mission doesn't expand any further. That has not been the case with Pine Tree Camp. It has gotten bigger, better. It's now a year-round camp. Activities are happening at a larger scale than ever. How is that happening?
It is pretty amazing that we're actually growing and going the other way. We've had a great board that has been very supportive of our expansion plan. Our executive director, Noel Sullivan, has also been in charge of a massive undertaking of changing the way we do things from a summer camp to a year-round facility, and the buildings really show that. They've got all the comforts of home, and it still feels like you're at camp.
What do you do in the winter now that you didn't used to be able to do?
In the winter, we have groups that can come in and use the facility. The lake's beautiful in the summer, but it's also beautiful in the winter. Mm-hmm. So from ice fishing to, we had a lot of fall events where folks can come down in and do a fall retreat. They may not want to swim, but we still have beautiful nature trails. We have a beautiful dining hall that looks off towards the western mountains. A big group of people can get together, and they all tell us that there's no facility in Maine where folks with disabilities can go and all be together as a group.
Is there a facility anywhere in New England? Because if so, I can't picture it.
There isn't, and our recent playground is amazing. We have a double set of wheelchair swings, and we are told it's the only one in the country where two people can actually go and swing in a wheelchair swing at the same time.
Now, you've been building this kind of infrastructure for summer camp for a long time, but for winter, getting kids out on ice fishing when they may have some disabilities or challenges can't be easy.
It is not, but we have a very creative staff. They make it their personal mission that anything anybody wants to do, if we can do it in a safe manner, they're going to make it happen. Everybody gives a lot of themselves to make sure that our campers have the best possible experience that they can. It's pretty interesting the way that we've grown. We have Maine has so many generous supporters, whether it's material, labor, just a cash donation. They've taken it, made their personal mission to make sure that we can build these kind of cabins.
Well, for everything you've done over the 23 years of this Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride, thank you so much.
Well, thank you. It's been a joy.
So Noel Sullivan, you're the executive director.
Yes, I am.
How long has that been going on for you?
3 years coming up in March.
Well, anyone who associates with the Pine Tree Camp, as we're doing with the Egg Ride, knows it's a team event because you can see an awful lot of hands pitching in.
Oh, it's incredible, and it's great to see the same faces come back every year and a lot of new faces every year as well. So yeah, it's really a statewide support.
As executive director, you must have come on 3 years ago with a sense of awe about taking over leadership of an operation that's been around for so long.
Yeah, it was. It was, I took pause and said, "Can I do well by these guys?" Yeah. And they decided to take a chance on me, and I jumped in and haven't looked back since. And have loved every second of it. It's just really amazing.
Can you give us a sense of what the history is of the Pine Tree Camp?
Sure, I can. We're in our 80th year, 75 years for the camp. About 80 years ago, there's a group of people who got together and decided they really wanted to take a look at some unmet needs. What could we do for our community? And one of the first things Pine Tree Society did was a response to the polio epidemic at that time. So the Hide Home was developed in Bath, and that became a home for kids who were living with polio to get therapies and hopefully to get back home. And from there, it's just sort of evolved to where we're at today, where we do a tremendous amount of sign language interpretation for Maine's deaf community, about 11,000 hours a year. We do children's and adult case management, helping individuals access services and get things that they need to be able to be active and involved in their community.
I think that's one of the most impressive things that people don't necessarily realize, because we on the radio stations always focus so heavily on the Pine Tree Camp itself. Well, but the Pine Tree Society has a much broader mission statewide.
We really do. We really do. And I think it is fair to say it's statewide. But, you're right. Everyone knows the camp, and with good reason. I think last year we had almost just shy of 700 campers. We're now turning it into a year-round facility. In fact, we are year-round. So we have all sorts of different groups coming to benefit from our camp, regardless of the time of year. It's just, there's always something to do there. There's always a group that wants to have the benefit of a fully accessible camp. So there's no physical barriers. If you use a chair or don't ambulate the way most people do, you're going to get around fine. You really are.
Well, the Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride itself has been going on for 30 years, and we're about 15 minutes from egging up. So, now, you've seen this before?
This is my third ride.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this is my third ride. This is the first year I'm a little worried. Last year when we left, it was -7, but we were going through the woods. Today, we're on the back of flatbeds. I don't know if you've told your listeners that because of the lack of snow.
Yep.
So we're going to be traveling at maybe 30 miles an hour. And I have a feeling it's going to be a little colder than last year.
Yeah, and you won't have the heel-handed grips going either.
No, we won't. Yeah. We won't. But, it's for a great cause, and we've had so many people call in to as you know, through the queue, to support us. So I'm not begrudging it. I'm just going to take a few days to thaw out afterwards,
Yeah, you can say to yourself all you want, it's a great cause, but halfway there when you're frozen to the core.
Right. So, thank you.
Back inside the clubhouse, Paul Jakes is suiting up. You might recognize that name. Besides being a prominent leader in the Waterville area, he spent 18 years in the Maine legislature, much of that as chair of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. He went on to be the deputy commissioner of I&W under Governor Baldacci. At this point in the show, he does not yet know he's about to get as messy as I've ever seen anybody get at the start of the Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride.
Paul Jakes, you're president of the board of directors for the Pine Tree Society.
Yes, sir.
There's only 3 reasons people get on to be a board of directors or a board of trustees, and that is they have policy expertise, they have community connections, or they're loaded with money. Which one are you?
Well, certainly not loaded with money.
Must be the whole connection thing.
And I started volunteering at camp when I was 17, 18 years old.
Is that right?
Chicken roost, jacking buildings, painting, and all that, and stayed involved, over the years. Some years more than others, depending on the time. And it got to the point where they said, why don't you get on the board? You know everybody, and so we got on the board. And then next thing I know, I was the first vice, and now I'm the president. So for 2 years. But anyway.
Yep, no good deed goes unpunished.
That's right.
Once again, that's Paul Jakes, president of the board of the Pine Tree Camp. Today's show is what happened last weekend during the 30th Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride. We're coming to you from Levant, though we're heading to Newport in a few minutes. We're at the Hungry Hollow 76ers Snowmobile Club at the moment. When we return, we'll start stuffing hundreds of raw eggs down the shirts of this year's celebrity riders. Altogether, radio listeners pledged $30,000 to the egg ride, which means each of these riders is supposed to get 600 eggs apiece. Is that even possible? This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. Saturday mornings at 9, Sunday mornings at 8, except for next weekend. It'll be high school basketball tournament time again, and we'll be on at 8 a.m. both Saturday and Sunday next week. Today's show celebrates the 30th annual Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride, which happened last weekend, and I'll take full blame for this. 30 years ago, I asked myself, what is the dumbest thing we could possibly do on a snow sled to raise money for the Pine Tree Camp, a camp for children and adults with disabilities on North Pond in Rome, Maine. Originally, I thought we might get stuck with a few dozen eggs apiece. But 30 years later, each rider is getting 600. A reminder, most of these eggs have been saved up for this event. They were not judged fit for sale. So rather than waste them, they've been stored and donated to the camp for this occasion. So they're not the best of eggs. One of these celebrity riders is new to this whole thing because he's new to morning radio in Bangor. Scott Miller.
I want to turn this around on you, Bob, because you were at the first. You invented this silly egg ride. Yeah. What am I in for? 600 eggs in my suit.
Exactly. I mean, you haven't suited up yet. You're about to get ready to go.
Yeah.
What is going through your mind since you don't know what's coming?
What's going through my mind is, can I fit in this medium suit?
Yeah. They gave you a medium suit?
Looks medium to me. No, what's going on in my mind is how much good comes from this. Seriously, I was thinking about that on the way up here. It's like, this is when community comes together. It really is. It's really touching when a kid comes up to you and says, "Here's $1 for the kids at the Pine Tree Camp," or some company says, "You know what? I can give you $500," or a person says, "Here's $1,000." That is absolutely wonderful, and that's what I was thinking about, is the good of this. Will it be messy? Yes, but you get a shower later, it'll be great. I love showers.
As soon as Scott Miller is finished suiting up, we'll head outside to stuff 600 eggs down his shirt and the shirts of all the other celebrity riders. There is a problem this year. No snow. About 7 inches fell today before the ride, but that wasn't soon enough to help. Warm weather had made all of the trails sloppy and dangerous. The streams were not necessarily frozen. Some of the marshes were muddy. So this year, the ride goes to Plan B. As has happened before, the sleds are on trailers and everybody will be dragged out of the elementary school in Newport. The big question is, why do we go the whole first half of winter with no snow? To WABI TV5 and the CW's meteorologist Todd Simcox, I put the question, what's happening?
Well, you'd think that people would be kind of embracing this after the winter that we had last year, but this has just been, it's been wild to say the least, and the winter of or quote unquote winter of ups and downs. But it's this is actually panning out exactly as an El Nino winter for New England should pan out.
Well, everybody's blaming El Nino. Is it justified?
Yeah. I think so. I mean, based on, if you look back and you look at previous El Nino years and you compare, the effects that it has for us in the wintertime. I mean, typically when we speak about El Nino, we start talking about, for winter effects anyways, we start talking about a warmer winter. Tends to be a little bit wetter, more kind of mixed type storms, things like that. And that's exactly what we're seeing now is, we've had a lot of these storms where, some of them have been all snow, but most of them have been more of a snow mix rain type event. And that's just, unfortunately, that's for snow lovers anyways, that is exactly how it's panned out this winter. So it's really playing out exactly as it should, if you want to look at the textbook definition of El Nino.
I suppose, but El Nino sounds like a drug lord name in Mexico.
I know, you'd think they'd come up with a better name for that.
Honestly. What is El Nino? I mean, it's something in the Pacific, and that's like thousands of miles from here, so why do we care?
So, well, it's the warming of the ocean waters, near the equator in the Pacific, and, when you get that, it tends to really throw things off here, and it really has a major effect on what the weather patterns are all over the world. And so, it really, when you look at it, and again, you look back at years past and you compare, to what we have here and the biggest effects for us, and, it doesn't happen all the time, but this has been a very strong one. And I don't know, I got to double check if it's been the strongest one we've had yet. I know it ranks up there with one of the stronger El Ninos, but you look back, the most recent strong El Nino year for us here in New England was back the winter of 97, 98, and that's when we had the big ice storm. And it's just exactly, this is exactly the pattern that you get. You just get these kind of milder, winters. You get some cold spells, but nothing that stays too long. It's, a couple of cold days here, and then it warms back up, and temperatures are fairly seasonable. And then precipitation-wise, depending on the timing, you get, some of the milder storms and the mixed precipitation, things like that. There are signs that this may start to lighten up a little bit and maybe allow for some colder weather the second half of this winter. Of course, we still have 6 weeks left officially on the calendar, so this time of year you start getting snow. It doesn't stick around that long either because we start getting into the warmer months anyways.
Well, when we talk about the strong effects of El Nino a week ago, we were hitting 55 degrees.
Yeah.
That can't be just El
No,
Nino.
That's just, sometimes it's just the way the pattern works out. You start talking about the position of the jet stream and the position of, high and low pressure around the country. And, there's more to it than just that. Even in a non-El Nino year, we can get some of those warm-ups, if the overall atmosphere sets up properly, So, no, I wouldn't blame it, 100% on El Nino, but the way our winter is panning out is very typical of an El Nino year.
How is it that we don't get either any nor'easters sweeping up the coast or Alberta clippers coming down? You would think we might get one or the other.
Yeah, again, it's all a matter of where, how the pattern sets up. It is for snow lovers. I know they don't like it. I've got so many friends that that own snowmobiles, and they haven't even put a mile on them this year. So
I know.
A lot of people pretty frustrated. Especially people that depend on it for business too.
Well, do people call you up in a winter like this one and complain their daffodils are rising?
Yeah, I've seen a few pictures. I won't lie. There were a few pictures a few weeks ago of people saying, "Wait a minute, what's going on?" And they had, I don't know what kind of. I don't know what it was for a plant, but yeah, they showed some plants coming up near their house. So
yeah, maple syrup was running.
Yeah, the maple sap is running already, and this is, I think, 6 weeks is what they're saying, earlier than last year. So, and I know that earlier in the year, before we got to this point, the talk was, well, if we keep with these, warm-ups, if we're not careful, it's going to maybe even start, throwing some buds out on some of the trees and really throw it off. But thankfully, it doesn't seem like that is the case, and it looks like from the maple syrup producers' side, it may be a pretty good year for them.
I suppose that does have actual agricultural implications, because let's say apple buds start coming out and then freeze off.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot more. It really, warm winters like this, abnormal winters like this, really can throw things off. So especially, and you get the lack of precipitation. We haven't had much of any snowfall for us, in terms of a normal year. We've been well below average, and last month we only had 5.4 inches for the entire month of January. So, that type of stuff really does have effects all around.
Yeah, we wasted a perfectly good month in January.
Yeah, seriously, no joke.
Yeah. So who's right more often, Farmer's Almanac or Puxatawny Phil?
I'm going to go with the Farmer's Almanac on that one.
Where would you like to be? Right up front?
The time has come. There are 11 celebrity riders. 4 of them are from the radio station. 4 are game wardens from Northwoods Law. 3 are from the Pine Tree Camp. There are rules. You can't wear anything protective. No plastic barriers or anything. It's normal clothing and raw eggs. Each rider does get a radio station egg ride t-shirt, and that's important because that is duct taped around each rider. See, the eggs are so heavy that they easily push their way out of the bottom of the jacket, sometimes not even making much of a mess. So everyone is tightly wrapped at the bottom so that the only way the eggs can come out is when they ooze out. We'll take a quick break for a moment, and when we come back, we'll load on the rest of the eggs and send the riders off to Newport. If you think it's a mess on this end, wait till we get to the other end of the ride. That is coming up. It's the 30th annual Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride on Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket. This is Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket with Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. I'm at the Hungry Hollow 76ers Snowmobile Club in Levant, where the 30th Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride last weekend is about to get rolling. We're in the parking lot in front of the clubhouse. There are 10 sleds ready to go and 11 celebrity riders getting egged on. 2 of these folks are going to share a sled. This year's ride raised $30,000 for the Pine Tree Camp, and for every $50 of that total, each rider gets another raw egg in the snowsuit for the ride to Newport. One of the things that makes this ride so messy is that the riders don't get to load their own eggs. After the first 100 go in the shirt, they really can't even reach into the box or even bend over. Volunteers do the egging, and these volunteers are not gentle. The kids especially like to throw the eggs down the shirt. Some of the women like to drop them from above. The eggs come in big cartons of a dozen. It's gross, very gross. What are you doing, Eric? So counting the right number of eggs is easy. Just dump in a whole carton, and there's the first 144 eggs.
What do you got?
All right, who's going to load some eggs here?
You guys know?
Most eggs go in the front, but many of the riders allow them to be put down the back of the jacket, too. That's crazy, of course, because the heavy eggs in the front pull the jacket tight across the back, immediately smashing whatever's in there. And every rider who is now making that mistake is already oozing a big stain of yellow down the butt and onto the seat of the sled, and we haven't even started.
Oh my gosh.
Now, try not to break many until the time comes, okay? Oh, one of the Lieutenant Wads was helping him one time, and the kid said, well, no more room. He saw, don't worry about it. He started smashing him in the back. I could feel him running down my back.
I'm standing with Paul Jakes, former legislator, county commissioner, and IFNW deputy commissioner. He's getting the worst of both worlds. One young lady is dropping eggs down the front of his shirt, while a guy is tucking eggs down his back. He's already dripping yolk from both sides.
My back. Oh, yeah. You're leaking like crazy back there. They were actually broke my eggs. They were pros to you.
Sweet lady broke my eggs.
And your water just broke. Oh, man.
What a load on that tape.
So you better sit down.
There is nothing back there that is staying in your shirt.
No, it's not.
That's a shame.
This is already the worst anybody has ever done, and you haven't left yet.
I know. I've had some help, though, Bob. I had some help. Some sweet little old lady helped me. She helped me out.
But it turns out I was wrong. As messy as Paul Jakes is, he's not the worst. Jonathan is one of the game wardens from Northwoods Law. One of the other wardens and a young woman are loading him up with eggs, but they're not placing them into a shirt one by one. They're dumping a whole carton into a second box, smashing many of the eggs in the process, and then pouring the result down its collar. I don't know who owns this sled, but they're never going to get all the yolk out of the seat.
Eggs, that's what's for breakfast.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, 6-year-old Kaylin and 5-year-old Amelia are egging another one of the game wardens, and they're doing what they promised. They're not dropping them down his shirt. They're throwing them down one by one.
171, 172, 73, 170, all up to 180.
And then over by this sled, Scott Miller, the new morning guy on sister station Q106.5, an egg ride rookie, is already blaming me for everything.
This is excellent, Bob.
Oh, he's already leaked.
Yes. If you realize who invented this, right? Who started this nonsense? Right behind you, huh?
We need to do some back.
No, we don't.
Oh, stop
There's lots of room in here.
You're no fun.
I know, you're right, I'm no fun. Don't drop the eggs, though.
Oh my God.
I've got a whole side over here that hasn't been touched yet.
I love
All right, that's a rookie mistake. Loading up the eggs while you're still standing.
Really?
Much easier if you sit on the sled.
Yeah, it is, too.
And never move again till Newport.
It's I would do it that way, except I can't sit down. The pants are too tight.
It takes a long time to load on so many eggs, but soon enough, the caravan will start moving toward Newport. As we've already mentioned, because this winter has been so mild and too little snow came too late, this year's snowmobile egg ride is going to Newport by road on trailers. But at least this event happens no matter what the weather. Some events have had to cancel or postpone this year. And don't take that from me. Bob Myers is Executive Director of the Maine Snowmobile Association. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine.
Thanks, Bob. Great to be here again.
Well, as Maine Snowmobile Association winters go, this can't be one of your better ones.
You know, particularly after we set the benchmark last year of what a real winter is like. But, you know, it's amazing how resilient everybody is, and they're still figuring out ways to go out riding. And, you know, certainly they're not going as fast as last year, and they may not be going quite as far. But there's, you know, still a little riding out there, and we're still, of course, the eternal optimists. We got a lot of winter left.
Was there any good sledding anywhere in January besides Maryland?
Surprisingly, yes. Aroostook County, particularly northern Aroostook County, was very good. Katahdin region, north of Moosehead Lake, Rangeley, they had the annual Snowdeo in Rangeley the end of January, and it was, they said, the biggest attendance they'd had in years.
That's because what other choice did people have?
Exactly. But, you know, people are anxious and they're excited to get out, and I think, you know, they're just kind of waiting, and they're going when they can. I know even here in Augusta, I was sitting in the office late one evening, and two sleds went by on the trail here that I couldn't have had more than 4 inches of snow on it. But, you know, if you got to go, you got to go.
Yep. Well, you get to go to a lot of snowmobile events, so how many sudden cancellations have freed up your weekends?
There's been a few, particularly ones where people go out on lakes and things like that, because, boy, the ice conditions are just treacherous this year.
Yeah.
And it doesn't look like that's going to improve all winter long. I mean, even if we got a tight freeze now, things are really sketchy on the lakes and ponds, and so we're encouraging people to stay off and be careful. Actually, the only ride I have been on this year was in mid-January up at the Northern Timber Cruisers in Millinocket. They did an antique sled ride, and I rode 30 miles on the MSA's 1967 Skidoo Super Olympic, which was a wonderful time. It's the equivalent of riding about 300 miles on a new sled, and we had a great day.
Okay, I've got to ask. I did actually get them on the air to talk about that event, and I'm glad to see they got it done. But, you know, modern sleds are awfully comfortable compared to the vintage ones. If you do 30 miles on something after you've been used to the new ones, how did that feel at the end?
Well, I drove home that night, and I was very happy to have the heated seats in the car against my back. There's no suspension. The exhaust essentially blows right out into your face. But, you know, there's really something special about those machines, and you think about, and particularly in the Millinocket area where Polaris actually field tested a lot of their snowmobiles up there because they wanted some real conditions, and boy, they had them up there. And, you know, someone mentioned on the ride, said, you know, in those days, you really needed to get someplace if you're going to hop on one of these for a trek.
What I really most remember about them is how the carburetor was in your lap, and when it backfired, it would belch smoke and fire.
Set you on fire.
I mean, having this thing go off right at your crotch was never a very comfortable feeling.
That's right. You're always paying attention and ready to jump off at a moment's notice.
Bob Myers from the Maine Snowmobile Association. Whether carburetor backfires or hundreds of oozing eggs are worse for your crotch is a discussion we'll save for a couple of minutes. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be in Newport for the de-egging. As messy as the loading has been, wait until you see the unloading. This is Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine on Sports Radio 92.9, The Ticket. Welcome back to Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine. This is the finale of the 2016 Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride that happened last Saturday. For 30 years, radio listeners have been supporting the Pine Tree Camp for children and adults with disabilities. For every $50 they pledge, these 11 celebrity riders standing in front of me right now had to put a raw egg in their snowsuits. We're at the elementary school in Newport, following a slow caravan from Levant. It is time to find out if any of the thousands of eggs arrived intact. It is time to unload.
Scrambled eggs, yummy! Look at.
All of the riders are safe, sort of. Because snow had fallen just before the ride, there was a lot of unexpected road slush kicked up on the riders. So that made this ride a little bit messier than expected. There's not much waiting around in the parking lot. All the riders are soaked with yoke and anxious to get out of all that moist clothing while standing outside in the winter freeze. Remember, the riders include 4 radio announcers from Q106.5, our sister station across the hall, game wardens from Northwoods Law, and 3 riders from the Pine Tree Camp. 2 of the riders are already getting out of their eggy suits. But wait, first there has to be some group photos taken. So everyone slips and slides more or less into line next to the sleds that are completely caked in egg yolk. Just then, one of the announcers, Cindy Campbell, bends down for the photo, and a game warden tackles her.
Wow!
It's the messiest one of the bunch. Remember Jonathan? He sort of knocks her over. They roll around on the ground for just a moment. But if there were any unbroken eggs left in those snowsuits, they aren't now. All right, everybody back up for the photo. Then, all the riders start stripping down. First, you'll remember that every rider is wearing an Egg Ride t-shirt, duct taped tightly around the waist and sleeves to keep the eggs from falling out of the jacket prematurely. For some riders, they can get the tape loosened and an avalanche of egg and shell falls to their feet in a big puddle of yellow.
Okay, that'll be enough for the group.
For some of the riders, the duct tape is too tight, and it's too wet to grab onto. This is the first time I've actually seen this before. Somebody brings out a big pair of scissors, and they cut the shirts off. The egg avalanche is even bigger. Next, jackets come off, and 100 more eggs shake out of the folds, creases, and pockets.
Well, Cindy, you've done this before. Was this any different?
It was no different than any other time we've had on the flatbed. Mm-hmm. The last time we were on flatbeds, it was 50 degrees outside, so it was very hot and the eggs smelled. This time around, it was very chilly. But the drivers did a great job, other than kicking up mud that was hitting us in the chest as we were riding. It was great. But it was a lot more fun on the snowmobiles when they're on the snow.
Yeah. Was there anything that was really unexpected on the ride for you, having been through this so many times?
I've never played peekaboo with the little child on a snowmobile before. But the son of the driver and I were playing peekaboo.
Scott, this was your first time. Was it what you expected or completely different?
Everybody tries to set you up with, you wait. They're going to do this, they're going to do that. So I had expectations of just roll with the punches and get through it. It was fine. It was actually a lot of fun, and I probably talked for the whole time, which just sounds like me, doesn't it? But it was great. And as we talked earlier, Bob, I kept thinking, this is such a great cause, and just the way the community comes together and gets this thing done is amazing. It was fine. It was fun. And it wasn't cold. It was, it wasn't too bumpy. It was too slow. I was hoping we could speed up.
I've been in faster funeral processions.
Absolutely.
Scott's been a real trooper too. I mean, he just came to work for us, and we said, by the way, you're going to be riding on a snowmobile with raw eggs in your suit. And I got all the normal questions like, yeah, but you're wearing plastic clothing underneath, right? But they're hard-boiled, right? Yeah. They're cardboard, right?
No, cardboard too was the thing. Actually, when we discussed me coming here, one of the first conversations I had with Grubble, that's exactly what he talked about, was the egg ride. He said, wait till you see this egg ride. And I was like,
What? Eggs? What? You put eggs in your suit? What is this? And you do snowmobile? It's like, what? He says, you wait till you see how much money it raises. And it's like, oh my goodness, it's just amazing. It really is.
Well, when you talk about communities coming together, but you actually seen it twice today. Yeah. Once in Levant, where one community comes out, and then once in Newport when everybody turns out to greet you here.
Yeah.
Right. We actually pulled in, and I said, wow, there's like almost nobody here. And Amanda turned around and said, look behind us. And they all followed us from Levant over here.
Absolutely.
So great support for this cause.
And the community of people who pledge and who came to, the supermarket, and just different people that come in and just like, this is a tradition for them. And that's it's just wonderful.
Yeah.
So you should be proud, Bob, that 30 years later, look what you created. It's wonderful. It's a great cause.
And so the 30th Pine Tree Camp Egg Ride passes into history. One thing you can count on for Mainers, if there are 1,000 things to do in a snowmobile, we will eventually do them all. I'll be back with a new outdoor adventure next weekend, but remember, the high school basketball tournament is still underway. So we'll be on at 8 next Saturday morning and at 8 on Sunday morning as usual. If you forget and miss it, all episodes, including this one, are archived online at 929theticket.com. Bob Duchesne's Wild Maine is brought to you by Hammond Lumber, Napa Auto Parts, and EBS on Sports Radio 92.9 The Ticket.